Have you ever sat down to try and get all of the thoughts out of your head, only to get that niggling feeling that you've forgotten something? While brain dumping or mind unwinding can be great for tackling overwhelm, how can we make sure that we do a thorough job without spending hours just thinking about what we need to add to the list? The tool we're talking about is a trigger list, and while the name might not be for you, I'm sure that the benefits of making and using one will be. In this video, we're going to look at what a trigger list is, some alternative names if the term doesn't really resonate with you, how you can make one, and how you can use it. The term trigger list comes from David Allen's book How to Get Things Done, or Getting Things Done, depending on the edition, and the list is described as being a set of incompletion triggers, or prompts that can help jog your memory when it comes to writing down your thoughts. While David Allen does have lists in the book for us to use, I personally prefer making your own list, mainly because then it can be completely tailored to your life. Also, in making your own one, you can rename it if you want to, just in case the term trigger list doesn't really resonate with you. Other names could be a spark list, prompt list, memory jogger, or maybe even a thought starter list. If you wanted to word it as a question, you could also have it as have you thought about, and then have the list of prompts on the page for things you might want to think about in adding to that brain dump. In terms of how you would make one and use one, it's a little easier to think about how you're going to use it first, mainly because that will inform how you want to make it. The general idea here though is that anytime you go to do a brain dump or a mind unwind, just get all of the thoughts out of your head, you scan your eyes across the trigger list, across each of the prompts that you've added onto there, to make it so that you're doing a really thorough job considering anything and everything you might want to add to that brain dump. By reading over each of those prompts, you're just jogging your memory for anything else that should go on your list that you might not have thought about immediately. The way that the trigger list really helps us though is twofold. One, it helps us do a much more thorough job of getting everything out of our head, and two, it helps us save time to do this. Otherwise we'd have to sit there for many minutes, possibly even hours, just straining our brain and trying to think about anything and everything that we want to put on the list. By having this pre-set up list of prompts, it effectively just gives us a checklist to follow when getting those thoughts out of our head. Now we know the trigger list can be helpful, but how do we actually set one up? Now, I encourage you to put this in a place that is going to be easily accessible, whether that be in your everyday journal or a separate journal like I have here. This one I call my long-term collections journal, because I don't want to have to reset this list up with every new journal that I make. Having it in a set reference book just makes it a little bit easier for me. It means I don't have to write these prompts out time and time again with each new journal set up. But in terms of the organization of the list, I like to have these in different life categories. It just means that when I come to use the trigger list, I can kind of batch my thinking around different life areas, and my life areas probably won't be the same as yours. We are different people, but the ones I have are weekly reset, because that's primarily when I use the trigger list, family, mental health, physical health, partner, social, household, work, finances, leisure and fun, miscellaneous for anything else, and then personal development. In setting up my list, I first went and drew out the boxes, so gave roughly even amounts of space to each of them, but as you can see, some of these categories didn't need as much space, and some of them possibly even could have used more. So I do encourage you to think about all of the prompts before you design the layout, because it means you can make the best use of your space and fit in everything that you want to. In terms of the general categories, you can use the ones that I have, or also add in your own. For instance, if you have maybe two different types of employment, you might not just want one work box, but two separate ones. If you have kids, maybe you need to have tasks specifically related to them. If you're studying or you're still at school, university, then having things related to that could be useful. But effectively, you can think about these as your different areas of responsibility or different areas of life. Once you've got those in, then it's time to brainstorm what kind of prompts you could put in each of those areas. Here we want to think about common tasks and projects that we have associated with any of them. So for instance, in terms of finances, we have things like savings, spendings, budgeting, if you need to move money from one account to another, do you have any repayments coming up or bills? Anything that kind of goes on in your everyday, day-to-day life, and any little prompts associated with that which might help you when it comes to doing a mind unwind, brain dump kind of thing. In writing in my prompts, I typically keep them to just very short descriptors. One, because I don't like writing too much, and two, when I come to use this list, I really just want to be able to scan my eyes over it really quickly, so I don't want anything that's going to be too wordy. You can word these like they're questions, like, have you considered doing your budget? are there any upcoming shared projects or things like that, but I find that just having these short 1-word, maybe 2-word descriptors is a little more helpful. Once you've figured out all of your life categories though, and then any of the items that are going to go underneath this, then you can design the layout. I like to keep this fairly simple. You can see mine's just a bunch of boxes with a little header and then a checklist of the items underneath it. Mainly because this is a very functional tool for me, I don't really want to distract myself with any kind of decoration or whatnot. I still want the list to look nice so that then I'm more inclined to come back and use it, but more than anything I want it to be highly readable, highly usable. The main times I will use my trigger list though is when I want to do a very thorough brain dump, so usually as part of my reset processes, whether they be weekly, monthly, quarterly, that's when I will whip this list out to make sure I can get everything and anything out of my head. I won't necessarily use it on a day-to-day basis because I don't typically need to do quite that thorough a job of brain dumping on the day-to-day, but for periods where I'm feeling particularly overwhelmed or set periods of time where I want to do a really thorough job, that's when I'll use it. If you were looking to set up your own trigger list and you weren't really sure where to start in terms of the categories and the items that can fall underneath any of these, then we do have a template available in our free resource library, so be sure to check the description box for a link to that one. The trigger list is only one of the tools that I use for a thorough mind unwind, so jump over to this video next to find out more about how I make my brain dumping process as helpful as possible. Mental overwhelm can be a huge killer for both our productivity and creativity, but the tips in that video can help, so click or tap on that one and I'll see you over there.